A huge welcome to this IoD99Bites and number 30 and a very happy spring. I think the equinox was 2 days ago. So welcome to a sunny garden and it isn't too chilly, and also the week after IoD Open House, which started last week. Which took place last week actually, and brought together well over 2,000 delegates from all backgrounds to hear over 50 speakers covering a huge amount of different sessions. If you attended, it was great having you along there. If you're one of the 99 winners, as Julia was, thank you so much for sharing the content, and I hope you had a great time. Now, as always, I'm joined by Jamie, who's going to give very much an intelligent insight into some of the key business news and goings on over the last week. And then we've got Julia, who is an awesome 99er, who's going to tell us a little bit about her business, what she's been up to, and hopefully one or two top tips that she can share with us as well. So, Jamie, over to you.
Thanks, Alex. Well, guys, I think the prime bit of news is that as we speak, European leaders are sitting down to look over the terms of the Brexit transition or implementation deal. We call it transition. Everyone else in government and in the European Commission seems to call it implementation. It effectively means the same thing. But what was hammered out on Monday and announced by David Davis, announced by Michel Barnier, was a status quo deal, which means the same kind of rules on immigration, the same rules over trading with the EU, between the EU and the UK, for an 18-month period, in order to give the final terms of the deal, which obviously yet to be hammered out, in order to give those terms time to bed in and give business leaders in the UK enough time to really get to grips with them and to basically reinforce their business against these various changes. So it's quite a positive thing. From startups, 99ers at the end of last year, we heard that actually one of the primary concerns was continued sort of ongoing uncertainty around trading status with the EU. And actually, so what this 18-month period will do will give a little bit of breathing space, I think, to startups who were worrying that actually we were approaching this kind of cliff edge moment. We're now a year away from the UK's official exit from the EU. And so to know that there's that extra 18 months after that is actually probably quite a positive thing. I think a word of warning within this is that Michel Barnier did say on Friday that they're going to continue to use that implementation period to still hammer out some of the final terms of the deal. And obviously if they're hammering out the terms of the final deal right up to the end of that 18 months, it doesn't necessarily give businesses an awful amount of time to actually put in place the changes that they need to make. So I think from our point of view, one key thing will be that there is enough time between when the final terms of the deal are hammered out and when businesses are actually having to actively comply with those terms, to give them time to see what they are and then incorporate them into their business models and their strategies. So that's a kind of word of warning within what is otherwise a basically pretty positive news story. The only other kind of big thing that's happened over the last couple of weeks is obviously last week's spring statement from the Chancellor. And this wasn't a budget, it didn't have all the kind of pomp and ceremony of what we call a kind of normal financial statement. It was basically a sort of statement of intent from the government, looking at some of the things they're going to be exploring before the real budget in the autumn. But I think one thing, particularly for 99ers and for startups, is that they're going to use the EIS scheme to try and drive as much investment as possible. I think it's something like 20 billion over the next decade towards knowledge-intensive companies. Now, these are companies which require a lot of very high skills and also require a lot of research and development. It sits right at the front of the government's plans for industrial strategy and driving forward really intensely productive, very, very high-tech and high-value businesses. So I think that's something that's quite positive. EIS is something that 99ers consistently say is very, very valuable to them. And I think in that sense, this direction of travel from the government is probably pretty positive. But those are the two big pieces of news this week.
Brilliant. Jamie, thank you so much. And Julia, over to you.
Hi. So yes, my name's Julia Elliot Brown and my business is called Enter the Arena. And I work exclusively with female entrepreneurs, helping them to raise finance for growth. So very much in this whole startup scene. Most of the companies I deal with are doing their first round of fundraising. Most of them are SEIS or EIS qualified. And I'm supporting those women in going out and understanding how to navigate the investment ecosystem, how to speak the language of investors. And for female entrepreneurs, this is so important, and for the economy as a whole, because actually at the moment so little of that incredible funding that is coming into this country is going to female-led entrepreneurs. Sadly, it's only around 2.7%, despite the fact that around a third of businesses are started by women. So there is huge potential for growth, I think, not only for the women that want to visualise their dreams, the potential of their business, but also the economy in supporting more women in funding and scaling their businesses.
And what is the root cause of, as you say, sort of a third of founders in the UK being female, but below 3% of funding going to female founders? What is the issue behind that? Is it there is more sort of male-dominated scene? You know, the sort of, you go to a lot of events, and it's very sort of out there. What's your pitch? What's your slide deck? All this sort of thing. What is the reason behind it?
Well, it's multifaceted, I would say. There are a number of issues. I think one of the issues is that it's a very male-dominated world, the world of finance. If you look at venture capital, only around 5% of the venture capital partners are men. Probably only around 15% of angel investors are women. So it's mostly men that are out there, and I think there is definitely some unconscious bias that is going on. People tend to make investments in people that are building businesses that they can totally understand, and investing in people that kind of look and smell like them. And women come across in a very different way than male entrepreneurs. I think some of the issues for female entrepreneurs is that they lack in confidence, partly because they're intimidated by this world which is very male dominated. And what I see many female entrepreneurs doing is perhaps not being as ambitious as they could be about how far they can take their business, and being nervous about failing when they go out for investment, and so therefore not going out for investment. So that's one of the things that I do, is really support those women in seeing the possibilities of their business, in thinking big, in giving them the confidence in how to go out there and raise finance, and I'm helping them to do that, because actually most of those challenges are surmountable. It's a question of mindset.
Well, I can't remember the stats off the top of my head, but I think there were some stats from Crowdcube which was talking about actually the success rate of female-led founded businesses is significantly high.
It is.
And it's a shame that we can't get more women in there to go and do that funding. And we often hear from the 99ers this issue around access to finance, where to go, what stage you should look at, and also just general awareness of even some of the government initiatives out there for finance.
Yeah, there is very low awareness. I mean, I think part of that is down to the government's sort of own infrastructure for actually sort of marketing what it's got already there. Which we saw that in the 99 survey as well at the end of last year. There are an awful lot of programs which are set up specifically to drive finance and to drive support as well, whether it's export advice, whether it's regulatory advice towards scalable firms. And actually across the board there's incredibly low awareness of it, and it's because government by and large doesn't know or doesn't coordinate where they're actually going to kind of be marketing these messages to, how they use a lot of the data they already have to segment within the business community the kind of businesses they want to be targeting that support to. So I think there is a real issue actually on that at the moment, and actually at a time when the government frankly can't do an awful lot because it doesn't have a majority, and obviously a lot is constrained by Brexit. Simply improving some of the resources they already have and some of the programs they already have and driving that awareness, it feels like relatively low-hanging fruit, really.
And have you found that as an issue with your clients, Julia, in relation to awareness of government initiatives and other wider initiatives?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it feels to me like there's a lot of money in the system. There are a lot of players out there in the market who are all quite busy trying to reach these entrepreneurs. But for the entrepreneurs, trying to make sense of it all is really, really difficult, because who do you trust? You know, you've got crowdfunding platforms telling you one thing, you've got access to grants, you've got tax breaks, all this kind of stuff to try and understand. And this is what I don't see in the support that I provide is about helping them to figure all that out and work out what's best for them, because often generic advice isn't good enough, because every entrepreneur has an individual journey that they're going on, has individual needs for funding, has individual needs for the kind of investors that are going to be right for them. And that's quite tricky, to understand how to go about doing that.
Sure. One of the things we see particularly in tech businesses is that there's actually a much lower rate of female founders within tech businesses as well. A lot of the time that's put down to the fact that there's a lower take-up rate of science, tech and engineering and maths subjects at university. But it's also, there are questions over whether or not the tech sector, and we've seen various high-profile examples, is a bit of a blokes club as well, and sort of keeps out women just by the kind of nature of the people that are kind of there already and entrenched within the system. Is that something that you've seen as well?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It is a real bro culture here, as it is in Silicon Valley. And if you go into Silicon Roundabout, you're talking about the co-working spaces. It's all sort of free beer on tap. Where's the free prosecco? Where's the childcare? It is a real boys' culture, and it is also a very young culture that I see out there. And I don't see enough inclusivity, not only for women, people from ethnic backgrounds, but also across the whole of the UK. It's very, very London focused. Yet there are some incredible businesses outside that aren't plugged into this startup scene that aren't getting the support they need. So yeah, I think it is a real bro culture.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we're starting to see some more female-founded only co-working spaces.
Yes.
I know there's an article in the BBC a couple of weeks ago talking exactly about that, to sort of create that culture where hopefully there's that free Prosecco on tap. And if there is, I hope they'll let me in as well, because I'd quite like to ask for Prosecco. But before we wrap up with some of your top tips, Jamie, I wanted to come to something that happened at Open House last week. So Open House was a 3-day event that the IoD put on. It was sort of festival of business. Jamie was involved fairly heavily in a lot of the planning for it around the speakers and content. 2 key issues we had the Brexit minister come along, but I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the signing of the Armed Forces Covenant, which is an area Jamie has been working on heavily and is an area we're very proud of within the IoD. Jamie, what was it all about?
Well, the Armed Forces Covenant is effectively a document that we signed which says that we will do as much as we possibly can to support people coming out of the armed forces, to help employers recognise a lot of the skills that they have, and obviously there are enormous number of skills in individuals coming out of the armed forces which employers desperately need as well, and they often don't know necessarily where to look. Particularly soft skills, communication, a lot of the drive and ability to work within a team. These aren't necessarily skills that a lot of graduates are coming out of university with or schools with, and actually enormously a lot of people are coming out of the armed services with these skills. So it basically shining a bit of a spotlight onto that. There are also other things that we pledged to do within our signing of the Armed Forces Covenant. One of them is to use the mental health campaign that we already have here at the IoD to improve the quality of mental health advice and support in workplaces, to also target that towards individuals coming out of the armed services with mental health issues as well, and work with military charities that deal with that. It's a natural extension, obviously, of what we're already doing with the Little More Conversation campaign, and it's really the very least that we can look to give back to people coming out of the armed services. The only other point, and I think it's relevant to the 99 particularly, is that there are a lot of people coming out of the services in the armed forces, and not just people who've served, but also the wider armed forces community, as military spouses, the support community as well, who are looking to start their own businesses and are, to the most extent, very, very enterprising, often lack a network, particularly a support network coming out of the military as well, and that's exactly something that the 99 offers. And so what we're doing is going to be opening up 99 networking events to individuals coming out of the services and the wider armed forces community to those individuals as part of the covenant. So it's really a 3-pronged approach from us, and something that we're going to build on a lot over the next few months, and I can come back and hopefully update in a few months' time on that.
Great. It's a great piece of work, Jamie. Massive well done on that. Now, Julia, one of the key topics we always have coming up is around access to finance. How do I get finance? What do I need to think of? You gave a fantastic pitch at Open House last week. Do you want to give us your 3 top tips to anyone watching who's thinking about looking for finance, what they need to think of?
Yes, I think so. Well, I think 3 things I would say is if you think you want to go out and raise equity finance, one of the most important things is that you get as much traction with your business as possible first, because you really want to prove that the market wants what you've got. And if you can do that, then you de-risk it for investors and make it much easier for them to say yes. So don't try and raise funding too soon. Try and bootstrap as far as you can. Get a startup loan, get a grant, use your friends and family before you go out to the professional community. That's the first thing. Second thing is, investors are going to be investing in you above anything else. They are more likely to invest in a mediocre idea with a fantastic entrepreneurial team than a mediocre team with a great idea. So how you come across to investors in terms of the way you present yourself, your integrity, your confidence is absolutely critical. And I think the third piece of advice I would give you is don't just think about this deal that you need to do, but think about where you want to get to with the business ultimately. What's your vision? Where do you want to exit? What other funding rounds might you need? Because knowing where you're going in the long term is going to have a massive impact on the deal that you do now. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot by doing the wrong deal right now. So those are the 3 things that I would encourage you to think about.
Julia, thank you very much indeed.
My pleasure.
Jamie, as always, thank you very much. And a huge thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.